Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I want to talk. Well, first of all, let me introduce myself. I'm Laurie Wheeler of Wellness Within and Spirit Adventure Tours. And today, I think I've really come to hear more people talking about the soul. And so I thought it might be interesting to just put up some information about the soul. And so let's talk about it. Um, First, I'd like to talk about the soul and the different aspects, and then there's some other things I want to discuss as well. So let's first understand, what is the soul anyway? You know, we talk about it all the time, but I want to be clear about it. So the soul, it's an essence of a person. It's not something you see, because we're in a body, but it's the essence of a person. It's the person's identity, it's their personality. It is filled with memories, all of their memories, and it's able to go on after a person's body dies. So it lives on and on and on. And so the reason for a soul, their being, is that we have a life purpose each time we come in, and that we make agreements. And these agreements, they're held in what's known as a contract. And this contract is something that's very detailed information. It's not a written contract like we have here on Earth, but it's an essence of a contract. And it's about whether, when we come in, we first of all, we write all the details, or not write, but we talk about all the details. And who do we talk or work this out with is depends on the extent and the age of your soul, whether you're a young soul or an older soul. And if you're a young soul, you usually have a lot of help putting your contract together, because, like a very young person, they need help with doing many things. But an older person may not need as much help because they're older and wiser, more mature, more capability. And so this all depends on the maturity, let's say, of your soul. And there's also the thought, when you embody with this contract and you're not aware of it, um, it's really up to you whether you're going to keep what you put into your contract or not. Keep to it, do it, follow what you implied in it. And some people, they even go beyond what they put in their contract. So we all have a free will to uphold it or not, or, like I say, go beyond. So it's really going to be your particular situation, your maturity. There's so many aspects that are really involved in your soul's contract, and it's very detailed down to how many hairs you have on your head, the number of freckles, the color of your eyes, who you come in to be born, who you're born to, how many siblings, who you're involved with in your life. There's so many details, and I couldn't even talk today about all the details, but those are just a few, and there are more that I will discuss at another time. So there are many types of souls. Like I mentioned, there are older souls versus younger souls. Now, a younger soul is what I like to call a kid in the candy store. And, if you think of like a typical 6-year-old, right, you hand them a little bit of money and they go into a candy store and they go wild, right? They're like, oh, it's all exciting and it's new and all of that. But they don't have any discernment about what they buy. So, or we might, I love to name a young soul. You can see it in certain aspects of our world. I like to say it's sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Now, that does not mean, don't hear me say that sex has anything to do with just being a young soul, because it does not. It absolutely is not that. But we may say it's a person that's very frivolous in a sort of way, sexually, and a lot of possible drug use, and also just, again, not much discernment. Okay. Whereas an older soul has much more wisdom. There's more expected of you in your learning process as well. And it's because you have more knowledge. You have a lot more understanding to work from. You've what we call been around the block quite a lot. And so you bring that information each time with you so that you not only have grown from it, but that you can utilize that as well in your next adventure of learning. And so it's different, like from the age of, let's say, age 5 to 65. It's what and how you've learned through your incarnations. There's no right or wrong. There's no judgment to it. Nobody's standing there, no counsel standing or any spirit saying, oh, you should have done this, or why didn't you do that? Or we expected this. There's none of that. That is very much an earthly thing that we do through our ego as being a human. So in spirit, you do not receive that at all. It's such a loving experience. But it's all there to learn. So with a younger soul, they're also they learn through their experimenting, and not that older ones do, but they use a little different discernment. A young one will learn in a different way by just trying lots of things, and an older soul learns because they're wiser in their choice making. So that's a little bit about young versus older souls, and you can kind of pick them out as well. You might say just watching people gives you an idea of, like, here's like an example. Have you ever met a young person, real young person, and say, oh, that's an old soul? Why do we feel that way? There's just something about them that we have within their essence that we feel. So we kind of know that. And then quite the opposite, we have met many young souls as well that we can just see how they are. Maybe they're reckless in their life, and they haven't learned much. We might say that people who do destructive things, they may be young souls as well, because they really haven't learned the conscience of love and caring and compassion the way an older soul may. All right, so there's a question: why do we incarnate? Okay, why do we continue to educate ourselves as a human? Because it's how we grow. So, and this is what incarnation really is all about. And sometimes we come back time after time because we really haven't learned it. And that happens more as a younger soul as well. When we're older souls, we can learn a lot in one lifetime. And here's just a thought, and this might be a little confusing because our mind is very linear, but we as older souls, can actually be in numerous places. And so if you let's say 100% of your soul, and part of that splits and goes one place, and another part splits and goes into another planetary system, and so on and so forth, and you're split in, say, 4 or 5, could be 6 places, right? Because you're learning all these things all at once in a different aspect of your soul. But that's for a wiser soul to do. A young soul would not be able to do that. They wouldn't have the maturity and wisdom to handle all of that happening, because in our quantum understanding, we are also receiving this. All of the soul is aware of this at some level of the self, and we can tap into this as well. And there's more about that I'll share coming up down the road. I don't want to get too complicated right now. I want to take it from more of a simplistic and then get in deeper for understanding. So to continue to learn is why we're here, why we incarnate. So we may come to experience or know who we really are, the true essence of ourselves. And we choose to disengage from this or not remember this when we come in, so that we can kind of relearn it, learn it better, learn it more, learn through the different ways we've set up to learn, different aspects of our learning as well. But it all boils down to the divine and love, right? It's just many different ways that we're figuring this out. And so at the end of a particular life, the soul's energy steps out of the body. And then the journey to reunite with your divine self happens. And this is the part of you, your soul returns to your high self and resides in your higher spiritual form, that which is always in your spirit form. And so it returns home, as you've heard the expression. And it's a most magnificent experience. We want to return home. We do not want to hold on, but there may be feelings that we left under certain circumstances, traumas and such. We may have left loved ones that it was hard to do. So there's a lot involved in the leaving aspect as well. But I will tell you that we're happy to return home. It's the most magnificent experience to be back in your wholeness. And so when we make our contract, there are exit points that we incorporate into that contract. They're built in. And if we decide somewhere along the way, it's just too difficult to do this, some people commit suicide. Or we've gone so far off the track, off our plan, out of our contract that we put together, that we may want to exit life. But what's important to know is that we have the opportunity to pull ourselves out of that and pull ourselves back in. We reevaluate, and then we can sort of start over. But if we've gone too far off the track, we may leave. And if it's important for that body to be here for whatever the reason is, a walk-in may come in. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But I want to give an example of this when we go off our plan. Or maybe it is part of the plan, and it's a decision that we get to make about exiting or not. There was a woman, young woman, and she had a pretty rough life up to somewhere in her early 20s. And she wanted to leave. She did not want to stay. It was very clear. And so she was in an accident. And what happened was she was this is someone I know. She left her body and went into a place outside of time, went before her council. And how I know this is I had an opportunity to speak with an angel that came and told me what had happened. And the angel also told me that she was given the opportunity whether she wanted to stay on earth or whether she wanted to leave and incarnate again to continue her learning process. And she made the choice to stay here on earth. And so coming back into her embodiment, not having a recollection of this at all, but that I was able to tap into this and hear this information so I could relay it. Then she comes back in and life changes for her because she had made these decisions at that level. And so it's an intricate situation that can happen at that level. And so it's up to the soul. The soul gets the opportunity and has free choice here. And so there are, let's say, many aspects to a soul. And the concept of a soul, or the essence, it can get a bit complicated because there's so much to it. So I'm going to kind of boil it down a little. There are what's known as, and I hear this quite frequent, and maybe you have too, twin rays. So there are twin rays, which are two different souls that come together. They're linked together. Like if you've ever had a deep soul connection, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They're really linked together, but they're linked eternally. And so unless you really are aware of this, you might not know whether you have a twin ray or not, or whether you've come into your twin ray. But usually there's a feeling that you just know, or you've been told this. So there are hybrids. This is a person who contains more than one soul. And this soul can come from, oh my goodness, anywhere. It can be from another planet. It's multi-different aspects, but definitely, or oftentimes, it's a hybridization from another species inhabiting. And so you've got you've got more than one soul in that person. There are walk-ins. A walk-in is a person whose original soul has literally left. In other words, like who they came in as, that particular soul, and that departs the body, and it's being replaced with a new soul, a different soul, or sometimes multi-souls. So that's kind of an interesting concept. And that's a whole subject just in itself that I'm not going to get into really fully in depth at this moment, but can maybe talk about that at another time. Then there are the 7 different soul types. They are the life roles of a soul. And I learned about this when I lived in Hawaii many years ago. This came from an elder and kahuna of the culture who had been handed down all the information from the beginning of his entire lineage of when his lineage came here on Earth. And so he spoke a lot about the life roles of a soul. And then we have a soul ray. And these are the archetypes of a soul. And so, when we talk about the mother and the daughter and the priestess, and okay, so we know those are archetypes. This is archetypes of the soul ray. And that's an intricate conversation as well, which at some point maybe we'll get into a little bit more. You have the color of the soul, which determines your level of development and the resonation through color. So we sometimes we see orbs, and those are souls in color. Sometimes we in a regression, a soul regression, when I've done regressions with people. And for my own self, I've been able to see what the color is or ask about it and learn more about that particular color and what that has to do with for that person. And most anybody who's really listening to this, you're going to be of a let's say a higher resonance of soul color. Young souls, they're different colors, and they probably wouldn't even be listening to this or wanting to listen to this. So um, there are there's more information about that to be learned. There are three different types of souls. There are earth based souls. There are what I call interplanetary souls or interdimensional souls. And then there are the angelics. And any of these three one is not more important than the other, but they all have a different task and reason that they are this particular type of soul. So I'll begin with an earth-based soul. And an earth-based soul is it's a soul that is primarily incarnates here on earth over and over and over again. They spend multi times here. And eventually, as they evolve themselves, they then, after through their learning, they are turning around and teaching others that are here on Earth. But they primarily incarnate here over and over again. There are interplanetary or star seeds, you may have heard. They're a soul who has incarnated a few times here on Earth. Could be a few, could be 8, whatever. It's it's an interesting thing as we think about timelines and time, and we talk about incarnation. It's all happening simultaneously. So you kind of have to expand your mind a little to even just think outside of individual times, okay? But these are souls that come here a few times whose origin is from another celestial place or an advanced system, and usually from an evolved type of culture. And they come to help humanity evolve because they have gained information and they convey information about evolution from that they've learned from other planetary systems and societies, and they bring this wisdom here. And also, what I know, and I've seen myself up on the Galactic Federation, one of the ships, and I also learn here and bring information from the starship here, and I bring it back also, because as we learn, we grow. And so it's not always just about bringing information, but as we bring it back to help better the evolutionary process and what's going on here on Earth. And so up on the galactic ship, there are thousands of other beings and many types of forms and such. And so the interplanetaries, they assist the advancement of Earth to enhance their perspective, to open their perspective so that, when you're looking at something in a different way, you begin to understand it in a different way, understand how to navigate life in a different way. And that's what's going on right now. That's why so many are waking up and coming into this. And it also interplanetaries, they often come from what we would consider a healthier, more beneficial culture than here on Earth. And what I know as well, throughout many years of knowing, being an interplanetary, we don't quite understand humanity. And so sometimes it can be like I don't get this. I don't understand why it is this way, because when you're an interplanetary, oftentimes you come from a much more peaceful, much more evolved, much more loving background. And so when you come to a place that is, there's so much war and confusion and hysteria and fear and lack of love in many ways. Sometimes we just don't understand it. And so there's a learning process as well for each one of us as well. So we're all here to learn. Basically, that's what it's about. And often we find it hard in our earthly physical body. And sometimes some of us, some interplanetaries, we can actually have a hard time actually being in the body, like feeling very constricted or feeling like the movement is different than what we're accustomed to. Maybe you're more of a light being and in some way, and you're not used to this very heavy, dense physical body. You can have a lot of pain in the body. You can feel very alone, not being with your so-called origin tribe from another place, and not finding your own people, your own beings, so to speak, that understand at this level, because you're different. So it's challenging to be an interplanetary here on Earth, but we come to, like I said, to bring information back, to learn and grow in multi ways. And then there's the angelic soul. And this is which supports the divine, and their essence is of real compassion and love of source. And you'll know one when you meet one, even if they don't know. There is this feeling, this essence that comes from them, and you can just feel it. And as you get to know the differences, not that you're looking for it, but it becomes obvious when, like for myself, where I've been in this work for a while, you just kind of get a feel for it. You can hear it. It just comes through the different senses. And although I've met others that are angelics, from the angelic souls, I've met a bit different, which was a warrior angelic, which was kind of interesting. So there's many different kinds, and we're all here learning. So, but again, all equally important. And the importance is to know your divine self, your divine nature. And we're all personally unique with our qualities. It's like the thumbprint. Every single being is very different and brings a special something that creates the whole, So, but we're here about learning our divine nature. And so the more advanced, the more experienced, and the more evolved the soul, the higher the soul frequency is. And so those of a higher frequency on Earth use opportunities to evolve through oftentimes trauma. And so I think, like, if you can think about someone in your life or someone that you know of that's really gone through an intense trauma, you might say, well, they're an evolved soul. Yeah, because they've taken on a lot in that particular time to learn. Many hands-on healers and those who are conduits of energy, they bring their advanced energy from their home place. And they receive energy of a high vibration. They open themselves as a conduit for this, which moves down through their body. Oftentimes, if they're hands-on, it moves through their arms and their hands, transmits through this, and they send this energy and information through that way, or they can send it through the power of their field, transmitting it out. So, do you know which of these you might be as we're talking about it? And if not, it's important for you to know who you are. What's your destiny? Who are you as a soul? And your mission is to know these important facts, because without knowing, you can be going one path and heading down and wondering, oh, why is it such a struggle? Why do I feel like there's something more? Why do I feel like I'm from somewhere else? There's so many questions that can be asking and rolling around in your mind. So it's very important to understand. I know when I came into mine in my second awakening, and I had had pieces along the way, visions that told me certain things, but when I really opened to my second awakening, I call it a rude awakening because it really was. And I may talk about that at some time in another video, but it was very important for me after that, because I then had a greater understanding of who I am and what am I doing here? Why I feel the way I do. What is it that I feel certain energy in my system? What am I supposed to do with it? So, one, this evolves over time, but two, you now can kind of move into that pathway, which is very important for you as a soul and your learning experience. So a soul comes into embodiment. Like I said, it's purposeful because that's what you're going to learn through. And our life is purposeful. And it is like our contract, to be taken very seriously. This is not put together haphazardly, for sure. But we ourselves are not to take ourselves too seriously. And some of us, and I think in this day and age right now where we are, we can take ourselves quite seriously. But it's good, like if you can imagine, like the Dalai Lama, he's a very lighthearted individual, right? He doesn't take himself too seriously. It's because he's a very mature soul, okay? So I want to be clear about something here. Many people have come, and maybe I might have thought this a long time ago as well, think that their job or their career is what their purpose is. But that is not the case at all. It's like your job or your career is the vehicle to learn about yourself, but it's not your purpose. So it's very important to, kind of separate those two and understand that it's just your vehicle. It's going to, you may have dharma within it. You may have karma within it to learn through that particular avenue, but it's not your actual soul's purpose. So purpose is what you're here to accomplish. So you can be a teacher, let's say, but maybe you're a light worker who is here to uphold the grid, the crystalline grid of Earth. You really don't know unless you access this information. And working with your Dharma, and I'll tell in a minute about this, or your karma, if you have to karma to clear this as well. So this is part of the purpose. These aspects help us grow ourselves. So our pre-birth intentions are we come to experience being human for the purpose of what you desire to learn more of here on Earth. And so that's why we put the contract together, so that we have a plan when we come in. And Earth, as it's a wide learning opportunity, there's a huge range of emotion and learning experiences here. and many desire to be here to learn, actually. So we have such diversification going on Earth, just like you have diversification of people, of ethnicity, of religion, of understanding, of all of that. Well, so is it at the soul level as well. Earth is such a reflection of what is in the unseen realm as well. And so it's an intensive school of learning, right? As if you don't know that already. And a good question that I hear quite frequently is, why is there so much pain? Why do we have to have this? Well, let me post this. If you're in a very comfortable situation, tell me how fast you want to get out of that situation. How much do you really want to learn while you're in the comfort zone? But when you are having difficulty and strife and pain, many people will work to want to get out of that. And that's where the real growth lies. And I almost hate to see it when there's so much. That's a great learning opportunity. So we use it to grow. And more importantly, or as important, it's what you do with it. And this has become such a phrase that I find myself saying so frequently. Oftentimes, it's actually not the happening. The happening is the vehicle. And we've maybe implemented some of that in our contract for sure, a particular circumstance, because it's as a soul, what are we going to do with it? What are we going to learn as we're in it? And you may not really know what you're going to learn. You have to go through it. You have to experience it to really know what you're going to learn. That's why it's kind of important. Well, first of all, when we leave our body and we come outside of our body at the end of our life, it's why we go to do a review, because it's about what did we learn. And so that's part of the review. So let's talk about guides for a minute. They come in all different kinds, okay? And there are many different guides, and each one has a job. So you have young guides, you have middle guides, and then you have your master guides. And you have a master guide that's been with you since the beginning, since your beginning. And so, and I'm just going to mention here, which popped into my mind, that there is actually a place where when you actually separate from source and you become your own, in a way, your own individual spirit or soul, okay? You go to a place, it's like an incubation place. I've actually been there. I've taken people there. And it's a place of love. I mean, it's a beautiful place, but they're being prepared, like it's prepping to come into embodiment. So I just wanted to mention that to you. And so we all start out the same way. That's why I wanted to mention it. And guides as well, they go from their early learning stages up into mastery as well. And they all have varying levels of maturity, just as the souls here, like I mentioned. And they must begin at their own learning level as well and progress up to the mastery level, just as we do in our soul evolution. But there will be a time when in our soul evolution, where we no longer embody, where we learned what we've needed to learn through embodiment. And then we will not come back into embodiment. We will begin through our spirit and begin to learn. And we will begin to be a spirit helper to others and grow through that maturity as well and come into mastery as well. And so some people call them guardian angels. And some people recognize them as master guides, and there are numerous. But I want to speak now specifically about your master guide, that which has been with you since your beginning, like I said, when you separated from source. And your guide chose you for a specific reason, maybe its own learning, but when it's a master, and yet they are still learning, it chooses you for a particular reason. And this is always an intriguing question to ask your master guide, why it chose you. That's a question that no one could possibly know except you and your guide, right? But sometimes, as you are evolved as a soul, you are your own master guide, or you are your own guide. Yeah, master guide. You have grown enough where that master guide no longer needs to be your master guide, where you kind of take over that role. And sometimes that also, if you have a master guide, is a part of your council of elders. This gets kind of confusing, so I'm just going to share a little bit in this. And also, you may be a part of your council of elders. And that's going to be another subject when I do another video about between lives soul regression. So I'm going to get more into that in another video. But for here and now, I'm just basically talking about the soul. And so we all have a primary spirit guide, as well as this council of elders, spirit elders. Okay. And I had an interesting experience when I did a regression. I just want to share this. This could be a little confusing, but I think it's just depicting how how interesting it all can be, and diverse, right? I went into a time when I was 4 different embodiments in that particular time, and in that timeline. And I was my own guide. I was the mother. I was the medicine man. And I was the boy going through a rites of passage. Now, here's what's really interesting. If anyone who really knows me personally and within my own self, I recognized aspects of myself in each one of those particular people or beings in that particular time. And I've seen a little bit of this in others. And what I was to be learning, each interaction and how it was creating a whole aspect as well. Now, I haven't done regressions with many people like that, so it was really interesting to experience it my own self. But what I do know is that the way who we come to be in a lifetime has everything to do with your current time today. So that was teaching me 4 different aspects that I am learning in this lifetime, which is interesting. There's a lot there. So, okay. I'm going to get off that subject because I don't want to get too involved in that detail. There's so much more to talk about in that. And but I want to get on to about the earth and the earth's resonance, the earth's energies. Oftentimes we're drawn to different places. We're drawn because we actually can feel where we feel that we've had another time in another place. And so it draws certain souls to where the energy needs stabilizing or activating or raising the frequency of that area. And in Hawaii, when I was there, we were invited to a sacred heiau. It's a sacred land for spirits. And what happened was there was a very large stone wall, and all 7 of the kings showed up on the stone wall. And we were there in doing some shamanic journey work to raise the frequency of the land. And so the kings were speaking about that. And I felt very drawn there because, again, it's a very high frequency area, very high vibe. And these are sacred places all over the globe. And so I have had a time, and that time I'm aware of in some part of the essence of my soul is calling me to that place. But these sacred places all over the globe, because they have high frequencies and also having to do with your time in that current time, and also having to do with possibly the earth as well. So it depends on what you're here to do. So all people, like I said, have a pre-birth plan, and it includes 2 aspects, although there are more. Like I said, I spoke earlier about karma being all of actions and deeds and the consequences of them. So you make a choice about something. You make a choice about, being in an argument with somebody, and say, as a young soul, you take out a knife and you stab that person. Okay. Well, now you've got karma. You've definitely got karma. And so that's the consequence. And coming back, maybe it's about relearning something in that particular situation. But there's purpose in it, to experience it, because experience is the greatest teacher and the greatest way to learn. That's why we embody, and then to come through it and realign with our divine purpose, our divine that's within ourselves. Dharma, on the other hand, has to do with our unique capabilities we bring forward to aid our accomplishments and destiny, and to use these further to advance Earth and ourself. So through a regression, you can discover your soul nature, uncover the reasons why maybe you're struggling. This will all show up in this. And so there's a lot more to learn through soul regression, which I'll speak about at a later date. And so for now, I think I've kind of covered enough, and it's going to give you enough information to kind of ponder about and ask some personal questions of yourself. And until the next time, when I come back to talk more, maybe about regression and some other topics. So thanks for being with me. And if you have any questions, be sure to put them in the comments or contact me through my website, and which is wellnesswithin.net. So until then.